Welcome to the Daily Insider here on VegasInsider.com for Thursday, April 1st. No April Fool's jokes from us. Just trying to give you winners. That's all we can do. Kevin Rogers with you. Tom is going to be back with me on Monday, and we'll have a huge national championship preview coming up on Monday. We won't have a show coming up tomorrow, just letting you know that right out front. So our final Daily Insider of the week today. And then we'll be back coming up on Monday again at 11 a.m. to preview the national championship, among other things. So let's get started now. And Major League Baseball, opening day is here. And this is a great thing because if you follow baseball, if you enjoy baseball like I do, it was very tough last season to wait until the end of July and play a 60-game season. But as I felt through this entire pandemic, I'll take cancellations. I'll take like in college football, you had a lot of cancellations and postponements, a rough schedule, choppy schedule. I'll take that over no games at all. So 60 games was fine last season. They got to play. The Dodgers won the World Series, and they were the best team in baseball by far. But now at least we start a fresh season, 162 games starting today. Games all day and all night. Already our first postponement, but not because of COVID, because of bad weather in Boston. So Red Sox and Orioles, they are postponed due to rain. They'll have their opener coming up tomorrow at Fenway Park. So that is the first game off the board. But again, no COVID, just rain, bad weather up in New England. So we are looking forward to the baseball season. And before we get to the breakdown of all the games, wanted just to tell you here at Vegas Insider. By the way, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel at any time. The subscribe button is here on the page, and you can be part of our community here at Vegas Insider. And you get the videos, you get the alerts on the videos when they're coming, and we're really building this. So we want you to be a part of it. And our baseball previews a lot to look at if you are just coming in for the first time. You missed a lot of the off season just because you were following football or following basketball, or you just missed what was going on. We got a lot to look at, and I'm not going to go through every division preview, but go to our baseball page, our baseball arena here at Vegas Insider. And we have in our cover the opening day story. Kevin Davis, who's a very good writer, joined us last year, and he has a preview of all of that's me up there. I have predictions for today's games. I have a couple best bets. You can find that up here on the video. I'm not going to play it through here. You can play it. But I have a couple best bets for tonight for the late night games. But Kevin Davis has a preview of 4 games. He's got best bets, free best bets, for 4 games coming up today. As you see, Indians, Tigers, Rangers, Royals, White Sox, Angels, and Mets, Nationals. So you can peruse through his best bets going on our baseball page. And Kevin Davis is going to have that a few times a week. So you can find that on our baseball page. Also, our handicappers, our consensus, which is a very popular story. We have the consensus picks from our handicappers on who's going to win the American League, who's going to win the National League pennant, who's going to win the World Series this year. And really no surprise, Yankees and Dodgers are the 2 favorites among the handicappers. And as you see, kind of the second place teams, the White Sox, a lot of people think highly of this season. Tony La Russa now managing them in Chicago. And of course the Padres, who made a lot of huge moves, getting Blake Snell, getting Yu Darvish to help bolster their rotation. They already have Fernando Tatis Jr. and Manny Machado and Eric Hosmer in a very loaded lineup. So San Diego, the biggest problem they have is they look up and they have the Dodgers in their division. If San Diego's in any other division, they're probably winning it in a walk. But they got to deal with the Dodgers 19 times. But San Diego should be still a playoff team coming up this season. But if you scroll down, you can see that our handicappers, and again, you can look at this, whenever you want, our handicappers, their predictions for AL pennant, NL pennant, World Series champion, and the best win total too. So you got to jump on that one today, the best win total. And for me personally, I didn't want to go Yankees-Dodgers in the World Series just because a lot of people are doing that, and I just didn't feel like I wanted to go that way. I really don't have faith in the Yankees, considering they've been to the World Series, once since 2002, if I'm not mistaken, because 01 is when they lost to the Diamondbacks. Since 04, because 03 they lost to the Marlins. So since, you go all the way back, they've won one World Series. That was with A-Rod when he came over. They beat the Phillies in 09. The Yankees don't go to the World Series that often. So I'm not ready to take them. Now, what's funny about that is I'm taking the Minnesota Twins to go to the World Series. And the Minnesota Twins have lost something like 17 or 18 straight playoff games. So how do they go? Well, they got to break that streak sometime. So, anyway, I like Minnesota. I like the Mets. Francisco Lindor signed his huge extension late last night for New York, so he's going to stay with the Mets for a long time. And just like anybody else, it's about health. DeGrom stays healthy normally. Syndergaard, whenever he comes back, he's got to be healthy. Carlos Carrasco, they have excellent pitchers. They have a very good lineup. It's just about now getting it over the hump in a very tough division in the National League East. But still, I'm going to kind of go out on a limb. I'm going to go Minnesota and the Mets in the World Series. And I like the Royals over 73.5 wins. You have Minnesota and Chicago in that division who are going to be very good. Cleveland, the jury's still out on them. And Detroit's not going to be good. And they're paired up with the NL Central, who is kind of up and down. I just think the Royals, 74 wins, I don't think it's crazy to ask out of them. But you could find all of these predictions on our baseball arena. And again, it's going to be up there for you. The season consensus expert picks. Also, Bruce Marshall, he wrote a piece about win total best bets, and you can find that here, and you could peruse through that. And our division predictions, as you see here, NL West, all the divisions, and the awards, MVP, Cy Young, league leader, win total, playoff props. So you have all of that you can look at looking ahead to baseball. Season starts in a few hours, but still there are a lot of things you could still bet on after it starts. Obviously, like win totals you can't, but the Dodgers, obviously the leader in the clubhouse, 102.5 wins. Yankees, Padres, Braves, White Sox, Mets, all expected to win over 90. And then the bottom feeders, Pittsburgh, lucky if they get to 60 wins. Colorado, they're going with kind of a retooled roster now with Nolan Arenado gone to St. Louis. The Orioles, the Rangers aren't expected to do much. So you could find the win totals there for this season. Just go to our MLB page, and you can find all of this information here. So that is that. Now let's look at today's games inside of Major League Baseball. And we're just going to skip over those, starting the American League. Blue Jays, Yankees, the first game out of the gate to begin the season at 105. Garrett Cole and Hyunjin Ryu, the former Dodger pitcher who is very good for the Blue Jays. And George Springer's hurt for Toronto, but still a formidable young lineup. And the Yankees, again, about health. That's what it's about. And Garrett Cole is automatic, but past that, how many other guys in the rotation can you trust is the question for the Yankees. We know they're loaded on the back end of the bullpen, but New York, a heavy favorite today against Toronto. Cleveland, Detroit, also one of the first games. Shane Bieber, Cy Young winner, heavy favorite, even though the Indians lost Lindor to the Mets. And I don't know how great Cleveland's lineup is going to be this season. In Detroit, feels like they're still in rebuild mode. But A.J. Hinch's first season as manager of the Tigers came over after he sat out the year for the Astros with the cheating scandal. No Red Sox-Orioles. That's off until tomorrow due to rain. In the National League, the first game out of the gate, Pirates-Cubs. Kyle Hendricks, a huge favorite in Chicago. Their over-under was about 78.5. So, granted, Pittsburgh's not going to be good this year because they don't have a major league roster, it seems like. But the Cubs, Anthony Rizzo had some contract disputes before the season started. He could be a free agent after this year. Chris Bryant, who knows if he'll make it through the season or get traded. They lose Yu Darvish. They lose John Lester, even though he was kind of aging. So past Kyle Hendricks, this rotation, not great in Chicago, but he's laying a bunch today in that opener. Braves-Phillies, a really good matchup. Two teams in the NL East where the Braves were up 3-1 over the Dodgers last year. Should have been in the World Series, and they blew it. But Max Fried, who pitched very well in the regular season against Aaron Nola, and Nola short favorite now in that one. The Padres hosting the Diamondbacks. Yu Darvish, look at that, laying 230 against Madison Bumgarner. And yeah, Bumgarner's not the pitcher he was in San Francisco, but pitched well towards the end of last season. Man, the money all over San Diego. A lot of high expectations for the Padres this season. Also, obviously the Dodgers, big favorites on the road at Colorado. Clayton Kershaw, he's your top gun on opening day. Then you have Trevor Bauer after that. You have Walker Buehler. LA's loaded. Injuries will derail them. That's the only thing that could really hold them back, because the Dodgers last season, in spite of the 60-game season, their win percentage was one of the top 6 or 7 in Major League history. So if you would have projected that to a 162-game season, they could have won 115 games, maybe more. And the thing that shut them down last year was the pandemic, was playing just 60 games. But LA, look, they were on the verge of losing to Atlanta. They were, and they came back, and then they beat Tampa Bay in the World Series. And Colorado, obviously, they're a team that could lose close to 100 games this season. Cardinals and Reds, really good matchup in Cincinnati. Two good right-handers on the mound, Luis Castillo and Jack Flaherty. And Castillo has good numbers in his career against St. Louis. Flaherty has really good numbers against Cincinnati. Total 7 right now. It opened at 7.5, so money coming in on the under. But the Reds going to hover probably around that 500 mark, 84 wins perhaps. And St. Louis expected to win the Central, but how far are the Cardinals going to go? I mean, they're going to win 90 games? I mean, is that going to be the peak? Is that going to be what's going to win you the NL Central this season? Mets and Nationals, that's the night game in D.C. Two former Cy Young winners on the mound, Jacob deGrom and Max Scherzer. And deGrom was laying 140 yesterday. It's up to 155. deGrom, as long as he gets the run support, one of the best in the game. Scherzer is still one of the best, but the numbers, the pitch counts get very high for him. A lot of strikeouts, but it seems like he's not going that far in these games. And Washington had a little COVID issue with some exposure to some players, so we'll see who's out for them tonight. But Scherzer's second straight season, he is a heavy underdog in the opener. Last year, remember, it was against Garrett Cole and the Yankees, and the Yankees blew out the Nationals in that game, so we'll see if it's the same story for the Mets coming up tonight. So back in the American League, the lone afternoon game, the late afternoon game, Royals and Rangers in Kansas City. And Brad Keller, he was laying about 160 yesterday. It's dropped to 150. And Keller, who he's been a very good underdog in his career. Keller's got some really good underdog wins. But do you trust him laying 150? That's the question. And Kyle Gibson went to Missouri. He's a guy that's bounced around with the Twins and the Rangers. Not a bad pitcher. You just don't know how much offense Texas has. And that's really the concern there. I'm staying away from that one. The night games inside the American League, White Sox, Angels. Again, high expectations on Chicago. Angels in a tough AL West with the A's and Astros, who are playing tonight. We'll get to them in a second. But Mike Trout stays healthy. Ohtani stays healthy. Rendon stays healthy. Angels could be in that mid-80s win mix in the American League West. Lucas Giolito, who in 2019, great breakout season. Last year had a no-hitter. Also, he won a playoff game for the White Sox on the road at Oakland, but a little up and down at times. He had a good road record last year, but didn't really live up to the 2019 numbers. Granted, you're not getting as many starts, but as far as just projections, not as sharp as 19. But Giolito is a short favorite tonight against Dylan Bundy, who was a good pitcher last year for the Angels. Great pickup for them, coming over from Baltimore. And the Angels, who had kind of struggled with the rotation, again, it's all about Mike Trout, and you don't really have the starters to rely on, but Bundy pitched well last year, so that's an interesting matchup there. Houston and Oakland. out at the Coliseum, whatever you want to call that place now. Chris Bassett, another guy that broke out last year, former White Sox righty, now in Oakland, had a really good season, and he had success against Houston. The Astros didn't play that well in Oakland last year, but somehow the Astros knocked out the A's in the playoffs. Remember, they played at Dodger Stadium. They played the neutral site because of the bubble for the pandemic. And Zach Greinke, who is still a quality pitcher. No Justin Verlander in Houston. He had the Tommy John. Garrett Cole obviously gone, so it's still Zach Greinke is the ace now of the staff. And 2 years ago, Zach Greinke was the third starter. And again, because you're behind guys like Verlander and Cole, but now Greinke's the guy that's got to carry it. They lost George Springer to Toronto, but they still have Altuve. They still have Carlos Correa. They're still popping the lineup for Houston. That should be a really good series, Houston and Oakland out in the Bay Area. And then the interleague matchups, Minnesota and Milwaukee. Kenta Maeda, who beat Milwaukee twice last year, brought a no-hitter into the ninth inning against Milwaukee. He gave up a homer and then got pulled, and the Brewers rallied past the Twins bullpen to tie the game. So Maeda didn't even get the win in that one. But Minnesota ended up winning in extra innings, but he still pitched really well against Milwaukee. And the Twins have an excellent lineup. Brewers lineup, past Christian Yelich, how much pop do you really have? You know, you have him and Lorenzo Cain, but, really, Milwaukee's got a lot of question marks in their lineup. Tampa Bay at Miami, and the Rays coming off of the World Series loss to the Dodgers. Tyler Glasnow getting the opening day start against Sandy Alcantara. And Alcantara actually, was a pretty solid pitcher for the Marlins last year, especially in the underdog role. So keep an eye maybe on the Marlins in that one. And San Francisco's at Seattle to wrap the night up. I do like the Giants in this one. Kevin Gausman, who had a good end of the season, 5 starts, allowing 2 runs or less. And again, he had to draw the Dodgers and Padres a lot because that's who San Francisco played. They didn't play anybody else playing in the National League West last year. And Marco Gonzalez had a really good season, but he's an underdog at home. Kind of question that a little bit. So that's the look at Major League Baseball for today and tonight. And again, just so excited for it to come back. And we'll have a lot of baseball talk here on the Daily Insider. Okay, so we've taken up a lot of time talking baseball. Let's now look at the NBA from last night. And before we get to tonight, the Miami Heat trailed by 15 to Indiana in the third quarter. They come back to beat the Pacers 92-87. And that was a double revenge spot for Miami. They lost twice at home to Indiana a week and a half ago. And remember, for the Pacers, it's still a big matchup because they were swept by the Heat in the playoffs last year in the bubble. But Indiana has just been such a huge disappointment this season. And, I mean, are they a playoff team? Again, you've expanded the playoffs to 10 teams. So you're going to get 2 more teams in, even though you're playing like a play-in game. I mean, you're considered a playoff team, but Indiana's really has been they've not been impressive so far this season. Same thing you can say, we're going to skip over to the Boston Celtics. And Jaylen Brown came back last night. He missed the New Orleans game with a hip injury. But Luka Doncic just totally torched the Celtics last night. Boston came back, made it interesting, but lost by 5. But man, the Celtics, they had a nice little winning streak at home. They beat the Clippers before the All-Star break. They were playing better, but I don't know what's wrong with this team right now. And I had mentioned last week, and I'll say it again, and you're probably losing value on it by the day. The Dallas Mavericks were laying 300 to win the Southwest about a week ago, and that number's going to jack up. Dallas is going to run away with that division. And they had a slow start to the season. San Antonio played well, but the Mavericks now are getting it together. The Spurs did win last night, but Dallas right now, obviously, the team to beat in that Southwest division. Portland won at Detroit after trailing at halftime. Granted, they were down 1. But look at that second half for the Blazers. They put up 73 on the Pistons. And Detroit, only one time this year they've won back-to-back games. They were coming off a win over Toronto a few nights ago. They've won back-to-back once. So you shouldn't have to be afraid to lay the points, especially in the situation with the Blazers, because Detroit just can't win back-to-back games. The only time they won back-to-back games came at Houston during Houston's 20-game losing streak. So that was the only time they did it. Speaking of the Rockets, good segue. Look at this one. In case you missed this last night, Houston shot lights out in the first quarter. They were 15 of 19, I think, from the floor. Up 42-29 at the end of one at Brooklyn. And they led going into the fourth quarter. They were up like 10 late in the third. And then the Nets hit a couple shots. Brooklyn actually went up 15 with about 30 seconds left, and the Rockets hit a three late to cover. So think about that. Houston getting 12.5 was up 13 at the end of one and needed a three to cover. And Brooklyn ends up winning it 120-108. So James Harden beats his former team twice. And that game barely stays under the total of 229.5. The Jazz, after they had that issue hitting the bird on their flight to Memphis, and they had to be rerouted or redirected. But Utah had some problems with Memphis. They won by 4. They beat Memphis at home twice the week before. So they beat the Grizzlies 3 times in like a 7 or 8 day span. But Memphis gave them a good run for it. Utah won, another under there. A lot of unders that we're seeing come in. How about the Timberwolves? That's a really good win beating the Knicks last night. Down 7 at the end of one. They come back, outscore the Knicks 32-20 in the fourth quarter, win 102-101. So they end up splitting the season series with the Knicks. And New York still in the playoff mix for the Eastern Conference. That's a game you can't lose. I mean, simple as that. And the Knicks, they've had a lot of these games lately. Losing to Minnesota, losing to the Sixers twice, the Nets. These games in the final minute or so, or when they're losing these close margins. The Knicks, I feel like the Knicks aren't winning a lot of those games. They beat the Magic by 1 about a week and a half ago at Madison Square Garden. In a game they were up 7 late, but Orlando cut it to 1. Like, they're not. I feel like they're not closing a lot of these games out very well, the Knicks. So that they got to work on. Toronto, now, they have a worse record than Oklahoma City. And that's not to take away from the Thunder, because the Thunder, considering the young roster they have, new head coach, first year in the NBA, that's a great job by the Thunder. But for Toronto, you score 14 in the fourth quarter, lose 113-103 to Oklahoma City. I mean, Toronto, I get it. You're in Tampa this year. You're not playing at home, but everything that could have gone wrong for the Raptors has gone wrong for them this season. Mentioned San Antonio. They beat Sacramento 120-106. So, exchange of results from the last time they played a few nights ago. Sacramento won as a dog. Game easily went over. This time Spurs win as a favorite. And look at that first half. You're feeling good about yourself if you have the over. 69 scored by the Spurs. Then a 47-point fourth quarter. So that one kind of burns you there. You needed 52, right? You got 47 after you have a pretty good first half. So, like I said, a lot of unders in the NBA last night. The Bucks were down early, but they rallied past the Lakers 112-97. Andre Drummond made his debut for LA. Still no LeBron, still no Anthony Davis, and a good bounce back for the Bucks after they lost to the Clippers a few nights ago. Phoenix ends up beating Chicago 121-116, and that one, there's no reason why you couldn't have gone over. I mean, easily went over, 39-37 at the end of one. And, again, easily goes over the total of 215.5. Bulls do it again. They get a cover as a substantial road underdog, and they do it without 2 of their best players. Zach LaVine was out, Kobe White was out, and yet the Bulls still managed to get the cover against Phoenix. And Phoenix was on a back-to-back after beating Atlanta the night before. But good job there by the Bulls getting another cover as a pretty good underdog, because they had lost to San Antonio and Golden State, getting 1.5, and now you're getting 8 without 2 of your best players, and you were able to hang in that one. So that's a good job by the Bulls, even though they didn't end up getting the win. So April 1st, 7 games in the NBA tonight. The good news is we have more Thursday night games. It felt like a long time ago we didn't have that. It was just like 2 TNT games. Now we're getting a lot more Thursday games. And obviously, you got to make it up with the pandemic and with the schedule, but still good to see. So we'll start Sixers and Cavs. Philly laying 9.5 at Cleveland. Last time these teams played in Philadelphia, Cleveland won in overtime. So a bit of revenge there for the 76ers. Joel Embiid is due to come back soon, so that's good news for them. And they played well with Joel Embiid out with the knee injury, 32-15. Washington's at Detroit. Bradley Beal's questionable, but I'll give you the stat. The Pistons this season are 0-5 straight up and against the spread as a home underdog of 4 or less. 0-5 straight up and against the spread as a home favorite of 4 or less. In all 4 of those, or all 5 of those games rather, 5-0 the under. They've scored over 100 points only once. So Washington is worth a look tonight, and that total has dropped a bit. But Detroit playing with no rest. Washington just blew them out last week at home, and Washington coming off the home loss to Charlotte. But the Pistons have not been good as a short dog. Bigger dog, they've been very good, but short dog, not so much. Charlotte's at Brooklyn. That line is low because the Nets played last night. James Harden's questionable. Hornets did beat the Nets earlier this season in Charlotte, way back at the beginning of the season, getting 10 points. But Brooklyn, though, still without Kevin Durant. Look, this is an interesting one because the money's on Charlotte. Brooklyn barely beat Minnesota and Houston, 2 of the worst teams in the NBA the last 2 nights, or last few games, and they didn't cover as heavy favorites. Now you're laying 3 against Charlotte, where everyone wants to say, oh, the Hornets are playing better. Yeah, the Hornets are 24-22. They're playing better. You can't dispute that. But Brooklyn laying 3, that's going to be worth a look in that one, even though I think people want to be smart and cute and take Charlotte. Now, obviously, if you have no Harden, Durant's out, who knows what Kyrie's status is, that changes things. Golden State's at Miami. And this is a rematch of an overtime victory by Golden State at Chase Center earlier in the season. Heat were up 15 at the half, up, I think 15, they're up 18 or so at one point, up 15 with like 8 minutes to go. And Golden State comes back, ties the game, forces overtime. Stephen Curry was terrible that night, but he had 2 big threes in overtime. He was 5 of 20 from three-point range. But yet Golden State ended up winning that game, beating the Heat. And the Heat, that was the last loss they had on that road trip because they lost at Utah and at Denver, or Utah and who was the other team they lost to? Crap, I didn't want to look it up. I want to do it off the top of my head. Oh, it was the Clippers. See, I'm not even going to look. Clippers. It was the Clippers without Kawhi and Paul George, and the Heat were laying like 6.5 in that game, and the Heat lost. So they lost to Utah and the Clippers. They lose to Golden State. Then they beat Sacramento. They beat the Lakers. They go on a nice run. So that loss to Golden State kind of spurred the Heat. And the Heat off the win over the Pacers last night, so now playing with no rest. Golden State, they get Steph Curry back. He was out for 5 games. Warriors went 1-4 in those games. Came back on Monday. They beat the Bulls. So, or Monday or Tuesday, whenever it was. So now the Heat laying 2.5 against the Warriors. The Magic at the Pelicans. And saw some news about Zion Williamson questionable for tonight. And we'll see if he plays. But this may be the time I think you jump off the Magic bandwagon. The Magic went and beat the Clippers at Staples Center as 11-point dogs a few nights ago. They're 4-0 against the spread their last 4, and they dumped Evan Fournier, they dumped Aaron Gordon, they dumped Nikola Vucevic. And they've been playing better without them, actually. But the Pelicans, though, trying to get back in the playoff race. The slow start kind of killed them, but won at Boston a few nights ago. I mean, you say is 9 a little rich? I mean, perhaps. But you keep riding Orlando? Is that the question or not? I say no. I think that the Pelicans have way too much offense for the Magic tonight. Atlanta is at San Antonio. Major revenge spot for the Hawks. John Collins is out for them. But Atlanta lost by 11 to San Antonio when they played earlier this season. But that score is so misleading because the Hawks outscored the Spurs 42-15 in the fourth. They were down like 29 at the half. Down 38 after 3 to San Antonio. And then San Antonio just basically quit in the fourth quarter. And they had to hold off the Hawks. But the Spurs this season, give you a nugget here, 0-5 with no rest when coming off a win. All right? So 5 times this season they have won a game. They played the next day. They lost all 5 of those. And they're coming off the win over Sacramento last night. So they get Atlanta tonight, and Atlanta's lost 2 straight. So the Hawks should be motivated for this one. Nuggets-Clippers wraps up the night. Playoff rematch from the second round last year. We were waiting for Lakers-Clippers, and it was bound to happen. But then the Clippers lost the final 3 games to Denver, and the Nuggets end up winning those 3, 5, 6, and 7, to go play the Lakers in the Western Conference Finals. Obviously, they lost to the Lakers, but the Nuggets laying 1.5 at LA. Paul George's status still up in the air. He's missed the last few games. But the Nuggets, who lost to the Clippers in Denver back on Christmas night, last time they played. So the Clippers got some revenge there, but now Denver's favored on the road. And that is the look at the NBA for tonight. Now, the other story here, as you see today's topics, Roy Williams retiring. North Carolina's Roy Williams. Now, a couple things on this. When I saw the story come down, first thing you think of is April Fools. That if Roy Williams, who had a Hall of Fame career, won a few championships in North Carolina, never won one at Kansas, if he's choosing today to retire, that's great. I just find it interesting he chose April Fool's Day. Now, on the flip side, there's a press conference later in Chapel Hill. On the flip side, if the University of North Carolina puts this out there as an April Fool's joke, and granted, it's plausible because Roy's getting up there in age. It's plausible. But if the University of North Carolina comes out and later today they have a press conference, they say it's April Fool's, that's one of the greatest troll jobs ever. You put it out on Twitter. It was from the North Carolina Twitter account. Roy Williams is retiring after 30-something years, all these wins, a couple championships. And they drop that and they say, no, April Fools, he's going to coach one more year and then retire maybe after next season. That's a great job by them. I can't stand April Fool's Day. I think it's a waste. I think it's immature. But if you're going to do something like that, that's a great troll job, if that's the case. Again, if it's not, if it's serious and he's really retiring today, I don't know why you couldn't have chosen Friday, April 2nd, to do it instead of April 1st, but that's a great troll job if it's not true. But if it is true, then all right, so be it, and it's a great job opportunity for someone moving forward, depending on which way Carolina goes with the next coach. I think Hubert Davis he's an assistant on that staff. And you wonder if he got a look or if Carolina went outside the family and went elsewhere. But, yeah, that was the big news that happened earlier today, that North Carolina's Roy Williams is retiring, but I call it allegedly retiring because of April Fools and the press conferences later. But you would think that's the case. But if it wasn't, that would be pretty funny on the Tar Heels' part. So, with all that being said now, if you want to check out our Major League Baseball selections, you can if you go to the Buy Picks page under MLB, and our handicappers locked and loaded for today. Plenty of action in Major League Baseball, $29.95 for daily picks, and we'll have those for the rest of the spring and summer into the fall. So you get that every single day. And our guaranteed picks, pay after it wins, $39.95 per handicapper. If it loses, you don't pay. So you can check out the expert picks for today. Also, NBA, we have picks for tonight as well, and not a big card in the NBA, but you can still find those. And I know we haven't discussed it yet, but we have a little bit of a lull in the schedule, but you have the Final Four coming up on Saturday in Indianapolis. Baylor, Houston, Gonzaga, UCLA, and there are already picks up for those games. Well, only a few of them, but some picks up, but there'll be more coming up over the next few days, coming up Saturday with the Final Four, the season wrapping up, and then Monday night, the championship game. Will we get Gonzaga-Baylor, the one that everyone's been waiting for, or will it go another direction? That we'll just have to wait till Saturday night to see that. But, yeah, and remember to like and subscribe to the Vegas Insider YouTube channel, and we have a Final Four video for predictions, if you scroll down, Tom Cunningham, he has the best bets and trends for the 2 games coming up on Saturday. So check that out. I also have baseball predictions for tonight for the late games in Major League Baseball. So check out that video also on YouTube, and we'll continue to pump out the Daily Insider. Remember, no show tomorrow, but we'll be back on Monday at 11 a.m. previewing the National Championship. Tom Cunningham will be with me to look at that game, and also, of course, Major League Baseball and the NBA. And, that's what we got. At least the good news is the NBA, we still have another month or so of the regular season before we get to the playoffs. So like and subscribe to our YouTube channel here at Vegas Insider. You can find me on Twitter at VI Rogers. And coming up starting next week, we will have some giveaways for our viewers. And again, you got to subscribe if you want to be a part of that. So check us out on our YouTube channel at Vegas Insider. I am Kevin Rogers. Thank you so much for watching as we begin April. Happy opening day in Major League Baseball. And as always, best of luck with your bets.